Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Arkansas fans, can you pull off the upset of the year versus the Texas Longhorns? I'm going to give you a film study preview of both sides of the football and what you must do as a defense. Number one, versus Texas, since they do so much misdirection, you got to have your defensive calls in because it's hard enough to guard them as is. The second thing is just because a guard is pulling one way doesn't mean that's where the ball is going. So take a look at all this misdirection. You fake like you're throwing or you're handing this off to the orbit motion. Then you play action, the actual counter with the puller. So that pulls these linebackers over here. And then you actually pitch it to another guy reversing around. Isaiah Bond, you have to be able to hold on to your backside contain as well. And look at this wall of Texas Longhorn players, okay? Steve Sarkisian's going to get a few of these plays. You honestly just have to stick with it. It's just that simple, and you have to make these tackles versus a guy like Isaiah Bond because that should have only been a 15-yard gain. Instead, it tacks on an extra 30 or so because you didn't make the simple plays. All right, if you want to win this game, you also, like I said, you got to make the plays that are given to you. Fake pitch into the field side. Ewers has no idea that this defensive end is coming from all the way back here. He thinks that this over to the tight end is going to be open. You just got to make that play. You just do. You got to pick that football off. All right, you probably will see Texas run a lot of variations of this play because, well, you'll see that Arkansas likes to be very aggressive defensively. Yeah, Elena Jackson does jump off sides. It doesn't really change too much about this play, though. It probably would have gotten open anyway, okay? So you get a free play here, and notice versus Florida, they dropped their end off and was almost able to pick this off. But, you know, this is just too open. And, yeah, you don't want that. All right, Texas runs these kinds of plays. They run a lot of screens into the flats, whether it's a running back, whether it's a receiver. And what they do off of it, they've run this for 2 first-half touchdowns. They did it with Arch earlier this year versus Mississippi State. They're faking like they're throwing a screen into the flats, and then the wide receiver who looks like he's blocking actually releases. Okay, you see how he acted like he was blocking this player. The flat player goes to the screens. He's going to this screen, but nobody has him, and it makes it an easy throw for Quinn Ewers. And I've taken a lot of heat for this. Quinn Ewers had one of the statistically most efficient games ever, but I thought it was actually a bad performance. He made a lot of mistakes. Things were just schemed this wide open. All right, we know that Texas loves the RPO stuff, and that's basically what happens here. Linebacker blitzes, tight end just occupies the space where the backer's from, and it's an easy walk-in touchdown. All right, so if you are Arkansas, you better be ready for Texas to take vertical shots, and they do it in a wide variety of ways. I highly recommend you check out my Texas versus Florida film study. They stole a play from the Devonta Smith. Well, it wasn't stealing. It was Sark's play back in 2020. They ran that play with Devonta Smith so many times, and it still couldn't be stopped. And this is just a simple slot fade. Okay, safety goes center field, and Quinn Ewers sees it on this 3rd and 8, and because Arkansas's DBs could not stop a vertical to save their life, you're going to see this a lot, right? And like I said, Texas, it's not always just a guy running past someone. It's a mixture, okay? And that wasn't even the absolute best throw, but it still works. And we get to the strength of the Longhorns. The biggest strength that they have are their offensive tackles, right? Both of them look to be first-round picks in this next draft class. So the likelihood that you're going to beat them in one-on-one situations is very, very, very low, okay? Look at how this left side just completely walls this off, all right? That's Kelvin Banks right there. But you notice what happened at the top. There was a lot of pressure. In order to get home versus this group, you have got to do something called a twist, right? Most of you know what that is. And this is actually an exotic way to run a twist. You overload one side of the line of scrimmage. He backs out. He rushes to this opposite side A-gap, and he's going to the outside, and he's coming around, okay? You're not going to beat these tackles in one-on-one pass rush situations. So this is a good job holding up these two blockers. They need 52 to come around and pick up the twister. He can't do it, and it is a sack on a very immobile Quinn Ewers. Here is one thing about Texas's offense that you can potentially exploit is because they run a lot of these play action, fake screens, their offensive actual plays can be methodical, right? So if you get exotic, Quinn can lock in and you get big-time hits, right? This ball should have been thrown right here, but Quinn takes too much time and bang, backside corner blitz he never saw coming, forces a huge turnover in this game. So I do think there are some aggressive pressures that Arkansas can employ in this game. And then you get the Dwight McGlothern special. He was the absolute best at doing this, right? As a cloud corner, not running with the vertical and just picking off these out routes. He got Jaden Daniels with one of these last year. But like I told you, if you actually sit and watch the games, now once again, Arkansas does not have Georgia athletes. In fact, Arkansas has some Georgia scraps on their defense. But you can pick Ewers off. It's important to note that you could see Arch if for some reason Ewers were to struggle. And then obviously one thing Arch gives Texas is a lot more mobility as a runner. Now, Ewers has shown the propensity to run, in particular that Washington game from last year, which we did a big film study on. But Arch just has a lot more juice in this aspect of his game. So if that were to come to fruition, you'd have to try your best to limit that. So now we go to the other side of the football, the Arkansas offense versus this Texas defense. You've got to be able to run zone read. I would run a lot of zone read because Texas's ends are very athletic and aggressive. You get a really good pull read right here from Carson Beck. Their DTs overall are really good players. 95 in particular can just flat out play. But, I mean, this has got to be a part of the offense this weekend. All right, so this is very interesting when you look at this Texas defense. Are they good? Yes. But no team, and I mean zero, zip, zilch, nada, have faced an easier run of quarterbacks than the Longhorns, right? You just saw Carson Beck, who's been up and down, and he made a few plays with his legs. And I want you to see this right here. What Vanderbilt is trying to run here is kind of confusing. So it's a play action to the left. I'm guessing this was supposed to be a throwback to the left. But you see, Texas has it guarded, and everything is covered. But Texas has not faced a quarterback with the mobility like Taylen Green. And we know Taylen, if there's one thing he can do, is roll out to the right. Pavia is a very, very, very good athlete. Taylen Green is an elite runner. And this will sound crazy considering how much Arkansas fans have been critical of Taylen Green. He is by far the third best quarterback that Texas has faced on the schedule. And then obviously the RPO game is going to need to be a big part of it as well. Obviously, if there is a play that Taylen loves to run, it is this. RPO fake, Andrew Armstrong on the end breaker. You guys know the offense. And you got to be able to get that football off, right? Bang. Hit that in stride. You got to hit that if this offense is to work. One thing that's going to be hard for Arkansas, let's just say Jaquindon Jackson is playing. I think he will. If it's 50-50, he's going to play against his former team. Can you block Texas up front? Now, they lost a really good defensive line coach in Bo Davis during the offseason. And one thing that they do that's a little off-putting is they do not line up on the football every single time. Notice there is a yard difference between them and the ball. And it does change the math when it comes to blocking, right? Because if you're back off the football, it gives this player a little bit more room to connive out of a block, right? So you'll see that on this double team, the DT decides to take a gamble. He swims over the backside guard, and he has to hurry up and get back into this gap. And notice he's able to do that, okay? So that's tough. These Texas defensive tackles are very talented. Remember, we mentioned 95 a minute ago, okay? Here he is holding up his end of the line of scrimmage here, okay? Then you have another backside DT who was able to swim, and guess what? They're all in the backfield here to make this play, okay? Now, normally as an offensive lineman, you don't mind a DT shooting all the way through this opposite side gap. The problem is you can't just whiff. You got to get a piece. It's a really good run stunt, and you can't just whip these blocks like that because you're just going to get eaten alive in the run game. There's nowhere to go, and there you go. It's going to be hard to just run on basic runs. So, can Arkansas actually pull this thing off? And before I give my prediction, we got to shout out our partners at Sequoia Dental in Northwest Arkansas. Quit putting off that smile, baby. SequoiaDental.com. Book your appointment today or give them a call at 479-313-7373. I think they can, right? I've already seen some crazy line movement in this game. It opened at 16.5. It's already down to 13.5. And the more you look at things from an Arkansas perspective, the more you actually begin to believe. I understand that a lot of Arkansas fans are concerned about, well, when this defense has played actual quarterbacks like Garrett Nussmeier and, of course, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, they got absolutely torched through the air. And, yeah, Quinn Ewers is a very decent quarterback, but I don't think he's by any means extraordinary. And I do think Arkansas, after getting lit up by Ole Miss, will play a little bit better defensively, or at least one would like to hope so. I don't want this to be a blowout. Obviously, you also have the Super Bowl factor in here, and that Arkansas is going to treat this game like it's everything. It's a one-sided rivalry like it is with LSU, and this is, their game. Come out here, win this game, and you're bowl eligible. So Texas, of course, doesn't need this game. They can still win out and still probably make the college football playoff. And one extra little thing is Florida's running backs were probably the best set of running backs that Texas had played up to this point. They actually had overall a good day. Even though I like Texas's defensive tackles, they had one bad fumble, but Ball was able to get it done. And Jaquinda Jackson going up against his former team could play alongside the mobility of Taylen Green. You could see a world where Arkansas moves the football versus his Texas defense. Is this Texas defense very, very good? You better believe it. Like every stat shows that. But nobody could have predicted that Michigan and Oklahoma's offenses would be as putrid as they've been. And that's, to me, hurts Texas, right? They've not really been tested. And this Arkansas offense, with all the inconsistencies and injuries to Taylen Green, has actually been pretty efficient overall. So I think Arkansas will play this game competitively. And before the season began, I did make one strong proclamation that Arkansas, coming off a bye, would beat either LSU or Texas. They've already beaten Tennessee. So am I going to stick with it? Sure. Why not? Hogs pull off the upset of the season. So if you want to see that Quinn Ewers film study, bang, it's floating in your face, and we'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour SEC. Boom. And tonight we are doing pulled pork. Let's go.